evening. Goeienaand. Dumelang bagaetsho sanibonani. Liperile bakaino. So good to have you with us again tonight. And a great show we have, a great program we have before us tonight. We have two guests tonight. And they all are very top-notch individuals. And initially, I'm starting alone. My co-pilot is not with me. He's still in the House, in Parliament, I mean. The place where we debate is called the House. So he's in the House debating. So he should be with us within the next 10 minutes at most. We are busy. We are finishing tonight at just after 8 p.m. So those who thought we are not working hard enough, we started at 10 this morning. Tomorrow is going to be the same thing. We are starting at 10, and tomorrow we'll just finish after 7 p.m. So we are really working very hard. Now, one of the interesting things I said today, obviously, it was very quiet. Spoke about Bill Gates in Parliament, about him trying to introduce synthetic meat made from in the laboratory, because they are blaming cows for they say climate change is happening because cows are also contributing to that. And obviously I raised that and I said, no, we need to protect our farmers. We need to keep on producing proper food and proper meat, because that's what God has planned for us to do. And so it was interesting, quiet, tight, tense, because some people know about what's happening, but they're scared to talk about it. I spoke about it today, and then we'll see. Tomorrow I'm going to raise something else about the World Health Organization, about the treaty that they are amending. Again, I know it's going to be quiet. And the reason I'm raising these issues now is so that when the time comes for these issues to be debated or to be thrown at us, because Africa right now is not yet told to start reducing the number of animals. They are not in Africa yet. They are busy with the Netherlands, Canada, and other countries. They're busy with them. But I said to them, what they're doing with rich countries in Europe, they're going to do it in South Africa and in Africa. But we must be ready to say no. Okay, but having said that, I want to introduce a very interesting person. An interesting person. His name is Kevin. But before I do that, their greetings. We have Cas van der Bijlmeth as the first one. He says, good evening, President Mishra, Honorable Deputy President Wayne Fring, and my ACDP family. Warm greetings from the Meth family in Port Shepstone. Looking forward to the positive engagement with our leadership. Thanks. Then we have Palesa Yates from the Eastern. It's a good evening, ACDP family. Then Joseph Rampai, all the way from Bloemfontein. He says, good evening, Mr. President. Free State groet jou. Hello, groet mij. En the heart of Zuid-Afrikaanse councillors. En the heart van South Africa. My apology. And the heart van South Africa. And that is from Councillor and Mrs. Rampai. Then we have Robin Pinesi. You must pardon me if I don't pronounce your name correctly, sir. Good evening from Tebeha, Gelvandale. Christian Rolson. Good evening, dear Mr. President, DP and ACDP family. Bless you. Bless you too, sir. Corinne de Klerk. He says, good evening all. All right, good evening all. Norati Nico, the one we missed last week. Good evening, Honorable President, co-pilot, and ACDP family. Thank God that there is no load shedding and I'm able to connect. Okay, thank God for that. Totisom Puti, also from the Eastern, saying, good morning. Good evening, Honorable President. But he wrote good morning. That's Tlokiso. Okay. Jerome Alexander September says, good evening, Mr. President, Deputy President, esteemed leadership. Looking forward to an insightful program. Okay, you are right, sir. Looking forward to an insightful program tonight. All right. As I said, we have an interesting guest tonight. His name is Kevin. I just have to quickly read something briefly about him. A very interesting person, a very knowledgeable person. A book was written about what he did. Okay? A book was written, and the title of the book is The Assault on the Rand. Okay? Kevin Wakeford, and he was involved in the battle to save a currency, to save our rand. That's Kevin. And the book was written by Barry Sergeant. If you are a reader, please get that book for yourself. You won't regret. Now, let me read something again from the book. When the rand collapsed from 7.60 or 7 rand 60 cents to 13 rands 84 to the US dollar in 2001, Kevin Wakeford blew the whistle, accusing 3 big corporates and 1 global bank of being party to manipulation in the currency markets. Kevin predicted that the rand was on its way to 20 or 30, 40, and possibly 50 rands to the dollar, which would have been thrown the 7-year-old democracy into economic and political turmoil. As a result of his intervention, a Rand Commission was set up by President Mbeki to investigate his claims, and Rand's collapse was arrested and reversed. The Rand Commission was, however, shut down prematurely, and Wakeford was fired as the CEO of the South African Chamber of Business. There's so much to say, but maybe let me stop here because we want more what he's going to say about what he did. Kevin, welcome. And I must say to you, thank you very much for your courage. We need more people like you, particularly Christians. Christians must be bold. I never understand Christians who are cowards. So I thank you that you are a true brother in the faith because you are bold and you are courageous, even though it costs you your job. But thank you for having done that. Because if you do not expose this rand manipulation, then the rand maybe could have been 50 rands to a dollar, which would have hurt our economy very badly. So, Kevin, thank you very much for what you have done. Thank you very much for what you are doing. And he is an independent commentator. He has been on TV, he has been in papers. People are consulting him, people are asking him questions because he was the person who blew the whistle. We need more whistleblowers so that corruption can be arrested. So welcome, sir, and over to you. Tell us, firstly, what made you do that knowing that you are doing that as a risk of losing something? Because these corrupt manipulators don't want to be stopped in their corruption, but you did it. And I thank God for what you have done. So over to you, sir. Tell us more about this rand manipulation, what it is, because some people are asking the question, what is a rand manipulation? So please explain to those who have no idea. Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable President. It's a great honor to be with you. I'm very humbled to be given the opportunity to speak to your caucus and membership. Let me say from the onset, biblically, the truth will set us free. So it's important for us to speak the truth. And, you know, the Christian faith, as you would know better than I, is about sacrifice for what you believe in. It's not always just about reward. it's often about sacrifice. And to be frank with you, at the time, I didn't realize what I would encounter. I believed that I would have support from the business community generally and the SACOB membership in particular. And as you know, that wasn't the case. After blowing the whistle and giving testimony at the commission into the rapid depreciation of the rand, the commission was set up in January 2002, and it was shut down prematurely, as you've said, in July 2002. On the 1st of September, I was called in by the president of SACOB, a very good family friend of mine, Christoph Kupka, who was then the Africa CEO of Daimler Chrysler. But of course, his boss was on the board of Sasol, one of the companies fingered, and on the advisory board of Deutsche Bank, one of the companies fingered as well in the entire episode of the collapse of the rand. And I think he was technically forced to request my resignation, or else he would have been fired by Jürgen Schrempp, who headed up Daimler Chrysler internationally at that time. But I don't want to talk too much about myself. I think what is important is that there is a book. If you want to read about what happened in those days, it's a very good book by the late Barry Sargent, a very good friend of mine. And Barry, I think, said it all. He exposed the Brett Kebble murder. He exposed the involvement of big corporates in a further book, involved in the former Kebble companies. And he tragically passed away from cancer on my farm in the Eastern Free State. Very good friend, and a man who spoke the truth probably better than I could ever do. So I would recommend that you read the book. But just to cut a long story short, what happened in those days isn't precisely what happened now. So the current Competition Commission inquisition into the rand and what they call price fixing or market manipulation, that took place between 2008 and 2013. We don't know what has happened subsequently. We don't know what happened after the Commission of Inquiry of 2002. One can say, though, that the rand in 2002, once the spotlight was on what we call market delinquency, there was a receding of deals. A lot of their deals were unwound and caused a lot of capital to flow back into South Africa, which strengthened the rand. So it went all the way from 1389 all to the dollar, all the way back to 550 to the dollar as a result of that market spotlight at the time. It took about 2 years for that to happen, but a lot of those, what I call delinquent deals, were unwound, and there was an irreversible benefit for the economy as a result of light being shone on the markets. And as you know, biblically, where there is light, darkness recedes. But let's talk about what happened then, and then we'll try and examine what happened now, albeit that I haven't been directly involved in looking into what's happening over the last while. But whatever happens in markets, it's all about confidence in the market. So the currency in any marketplace is what you call your national share price. So the value of the rand against a basket of international currencies is really about what people believe our economy is worth. So they set a share price which is dictated by market factors of supply and demand. So currency trades just as wheat, just as maize, just as pork bellies, gold, silver, platinum. it trades on an international market, and it's based on supply and demand. The same goes for that period. So what happened then in 2001? The rand took a huge dive, all the way from 760 to 1359 or 1389. I can't remember exact numbers, but it was a huge drop. It cost the economy in those days about 300 billion rand in losses. And remember, our GDP in those days wasn't as big as it is now, so it had a big impact. But you know, when a currency weakens, it weakens and it affects ordinary people. So the price of maize, let's take maize as an example. The price of maize is set in Chicago, not in Bothaville. So if a local farmer who's growing maize can't sell his maize at the, let's call it the export parity price that he could get offshore, then he will sell it offshore rather than selling it locally. So the price of maize meal, the price of wheat flour, the price of all your value chain products linked to raw maize. For instance, maize it requires combine harvesters. If the rand is weak, the price of diesel goes up, the cost of harvesting goes up, the price of maize goes up. So ultimately, a weakening currency causes imported inflation. You bring the inflation into the country from outside. And as a consequence of that, consumers pay more and more for basic foodstuffs, for fuel such as diesel, petrol, or power paraffin. They pay more for interest rates on their bonds because as the rand weakens, it causes inflation, and the Reserve Bank response to inflation is to lift interest rates, which is not necessarily the correct remedy, but that's what they do. If I was sitting there, I wouldn't do that, because small business rely on business loans, and the interest on business loans ultimately impacts on the end user prices of the products they produce. But what happened in those days, back in 2001, I received information from a confidential source. On a handshake, I said I would never reveal their name because they feared for their lives. They were on the inside of the financial services sector. They provided me with info that said that there was illicit capital flows as a result of illicit deals which took place between Sasol, Nampak, and Mcell. So deals between them and let's call it offshore companies. And Deutsche Bank at that time was the facilitator of those deals. So what happened was, in the case of Sasol, which is the big, as you know, fuel producer in this country, energy producer, Sasol at that time wanted to do a deal with Condia in Germany, which was a big energy company, and they needed permission from the Reserve Bank to externalize capital. They also needed permission from National Treasury. What took place was they were given permission if they sold Sasol shares offshore, so that foreigners technically would be able to purchase those shares offshore, and that money that would remain offshore in order to make foreign investments in the energy sector in Europe. So what really happened was they sold shares offshore to Deutsche Bank London, and Deutsche Bank London, instead of selling those shares to foreigners, sold them back into the South African market. And as a consequence of that, it caused a net outflow rather than a net inflow. It would have been a net inflow if they'd abided by the protocols and the, let's call it the regulatory regime that was imposed on them, but they didn't do that. So it caused a net outflow of capital. And during the Rand Commission, the Reserve Bank imposed what you call a reversal of 800 million on them, and they paid that reversal. In my view, that's a fine. That was paid by Deutsche Bank. That was hidden. I found out about it, and at the time we exposed that. So technically what happened in those days, that what I would consider illicit deals took place, and net capital outflows, which caused a collapse in the Rand. Now, let me say this, it wasn't just those companies. That's all I had received. I said to the Commission and to John Myburgh, the chairman, who was a former Labour Court judge, I said, this requires in-depth investigation. There could have been much, much more to this. You know, when bankers, for instance, and currency traders know about a deal that is going through the markets, they often front run the deal because they know the impact that that deal is going to have. So they go and buy that currency ahead of you, and then they make some very quick and good money on the deal. But we don't know what happened around those deals. We don't know who else was delinquent. There were major deals during that time, even including big companies like De Beers. But I can't point fingers at them because the Commission didn't do its work. But the currency clearly suffered. And as a consequence of the Commission's illumination of the markets, there was a regain in value of the Rand. But since then, since 2008 to 2013, there has been considerable reporting and investigation around what took place during that chapter in our currency markets. So we have seen that a number of banks have admitted to price fixing the Rand. And as a consequence, they were prosecuted, in some of them in New York, and that's why all of this came out. And then the Competition Commission of South Africa stepped in because price fixing is a criminal act, and they proceeded to get, as far as I know, Standard Chartered to sign an admission and to pay a plea bargain in order to cooperate and reveal more facts to the Commission, the Competition Commission. The matter has now moved from an investigation to the Competition Tribunal, which is the equivalent of a court of law, and that tribunal can impose prosecution sentences as well as fines and penalties. We don't know what's going to happen there, but certainly during my time, one found that, for instance, the Commission of Inquiry that I testified to did something, or something happened post the Commission, which I found interesting, but it doesn't mean anything was wrong. But let me say this, because it has been published widely, that the Commissioner himself, the chairman, John Myburgh, a former Labour Court judge, he became a corporate governance consultant to one of the key companies, being Sasol. Mandla Ganshaw, also one of the majority report operators on the Commission. Mandla became an independent director and eventually chairman of the Sasol board. And then finally, Christine Kunta, who was the author of the minority report because she didn't agree with Ganshaw or with Myburgh, she was totally marginalized economically as a commercial attorney after that. And then, of course, my boss, as I've said to you earlier on, his boss was Jürgen Schrempp, and Jürgen Schrempp sat on the board of the advisory board of Deutsche, and of course on the board of Sasol. So one can infer whatever one wants from that, but it seems awfully conflicted, and it's not healthy for a commission of inquiry to have commissioners who end up being involved with companies that were ultimately fingered by the whistleblowers and investigated by the Commission. Peña Meduna, the then Minister of Justice, who closed down that commission prematurely, became part of a major empowerment deal with Sasol in 2006. Now, one might say that's totally innocent, but one's got to take that into recognition, that here was a Minister of Justice who closed down a commission and then became part of, post his cabinet life, of course, became part of a major empowerment consortium that took a significant shareholding of Sasol. So let's talk about, if I still have time, Honorable President, I don't know if you want to intervene at this stage. I would like to just talk about price fixing and what I understand happened between 2008 and 2013, and what are the possible remedies to that.
Well, thank you for that information. If you don't mind, we must arrange a part 2 to our discussion, because there are a number of things you said that maybe some viewers did not understand fully well, that they need to have an opportunity to ask questions. That's the most important thing. So I'm not sure whether okay, I see there's already the first question on the screen. Isn't the currency manipulation in South Africa the same thing that happened in China with the yen? That's your first question.
China's currency is the yuan, not the yen. The yen is the Japanese currency. And it has been said, and that was, in the past, not currently, that China deliberately kept their currency weak because they weren't fully integrated into the global economy at that time, but they kept it weak so they could export. And they grew their export markets phenomenally. And today, China is our single biggest trading partner as a country. It's bigger than the US, it's bigger than the UK, and it's bigger than Europe on a combined basis. So it's a very important trading partner, but those were accusations made quite a way back. I can't tell you that. I'm not a currency or monetary economist, but one can see if a currency starts eroding and losing value, it's very clear what's happening. For us, people, at the time, certain trade unionists said to me, and certain exporters like the mines and some of the big farmers, they said, Kevin, let's have a weak rand, man. It doesn't matter. It's good for us. But what they don't think about is the cost of imports. Let me give you a few examples. The cost of a laptop, the cost of a fuel injector for a VW engine, the cost of a vehicle computer for any vehicle. Most of them are imported. It pushes prices up. But most importantly, whatever you buy locally, even if it isn't imported, you pay the international dollar price. So all commodities are dollar denominated. They're priced in dollars and then converted into rands. So ultimately, if you have a weak rand, you pay more for everything. And who suffers the most? The bulk of your voters, the middle class and the poor. They suffer more than the big corporates and the rich. The rich externalize their capital. The big corporates externalize their capital. They don't really feel it. And most big corporates are net exporters, whether it be the mines or, big commercial farmers or big industrialists. They produce for export markets. They don't really care what happens to the rand. In fact, they may even support a weaker rand. But for the ordinary citizen, for Joe Soap, for your voters, you have to have a reasonably stable and relatively strong currency. If you don't have that, you are going to suffer as a nation, because your voters are going to become disenchanted and they are going to There is going to be what I call cognitive dissonance in the markets. There's going to be an escalation of crime. There's going to be price stability problems, escalating inflation, and of course, escalating interest rates as a consequence of that. So we've got to be very careful before being flippant about the value of a currency. So are our guys doing it as China did it? I don't know. But what I can say to you is that there is delinquency in the markets. It was proven in 2001. It's been proven again now between 2008 and 2013. And who knows what's still happening. What happened then isn't causing the collapse of the rand now. What happened then is what I call a confidence crisis in our economy, in our political economy, and in our share market price, which is the rand. It's the only way to value an economy. It's to have a look at the value of the currency. It's our national share price. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Can I have the last question or two? So before we introduce our second guest. Anybody who has another question? All right, this is just a comment that so much happening in a country that ordinary South Africans are not aware of, which is true, from Pendulo Letsoalo. All right, friends. Okay, Andrew Mukwena Tambum. Good evening, Mr. President. What will it take to revisit this case? Is there any chance that this matter can be pursued as it is a malicious case? That's the question to you.
Mr. President, I would argue that, this isn't about settling scores. This is about our nation and a stable, prosperous national economy. And to get there, we need the correct oversight. We need accountability and transparency, which needs to be brought about by a more comprehensive legislative and regulatory framework without stymieing and constraining what I call the factors of supply and demand. But you need honesty and integrity in the markets. We haven't had that. And I don't think it's about pulling through a few currency traders and hitting them over the head. This is about getting corporate leadership to lift the corporate veil in the banks and in the financial services sector and elsewhere, and then also to have proper oversight by the Reserve Bank, by the different financial oversight authorities. And there are quite a few of them in the South African economy. It's very possible to implement, but we have to agree that leadership in the private sector and in government need to think about the people first and themselves second, and to not purely pursue profit and corrupt profit at times, and not to bend over backwards for what I call corporate interests, because they've got big bank accounts. It's not about that. Leadership is about self-sacrifice, about enforcing transparency and enforcing oversight. And if we can do that in South Africa, we won't need to revisit the past. I think it's about building the future. It's not about a blame game. It's about getting things right. Yes, there may be prosecutions. There may be people even jailed. But for me, that's not important. What is important is to start getting our economy right with good corporate governance, with good government oversight, and with good leadership in the country. And if we can do that, this country can be and will be one of the most prosperous nations in the Southern Hemisphere. South Africa will become the Singapore of the Southern Hemisphere and of Africa.
Thank you very much, sir. For tonight, we have to leave it at where we are right now so that we can have our second guest to also have something to share before we run out of time. She's Advocate Lufuno, that is her name, and she is an award-winning thought leader, a former public servant, and a cyber law consultant specializing in cyber security governance and ICT contract management. Her background is in cyber law, ICT policy, strategy, management, and leadership, particularly as it relates to the transformation of the cyberspace and service management. Oh, she has a lot to explain. Advocate, maybe you must remove that mask so that you will not muzzle when you speak. We want to hear you very, very clearly. I'm sure you are alone. You are alone in that room, so I'm going to request that you remove it for now. But welcome, welcome, welcome. Tell us more about cyber security. What is it? Do we really need cyber security in South Africa? Is it effective? Do we have it in South Africa? How effective is it? Particularly when we look at child and human trafficking that is increasing by the day. How can cybersecurity specialists like yourself help South Africa to reduce the number of human trafficking cases, and also to ensure that when children are in the streets, women in the streets, that will feel and be assured that they are safe, they will not be kidnapped in order to be sold somewhere else. And obviously, lastly, we heard that South Africa has become a hub of human trafficking. And we have also heard that human trafficking is more profitable.
I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm struggling to hear anything from your side.
We have a challenge. We have a challenge. Okay, continue talking. I was just trying to give the background. But if you can hear me, one of my first requests was for you to remove that mask so that, we have a challenge again with connectivity. Joshua, we may have to go back to Kevin to finish off because I cut him off. And looks like we are going to have a similar story as we had with the lady from Mamelodi. Is Kevin still online? If Kevin is still on, let him rather say what he wanted to say before we release him. Kevin, my brother, Vice, yay.
Kevin is gone.
Oh, Kevin is gone. Okay. They say Kevin is gone. Now, with Kevin gone, obviously, and the advocate and cyber security specialist having challenges with network, we have to move on. We have to move on, unfortunately. And when we move on, where are we going on? Where are we going? One of the things that we were also, we have Jerome Alex September who says, thank you, Mr. President, for your previous guest. He spoke in a language we ordinary people could understand. Those people gonna stand before God. Thanks, Jerome. And then another, Delmon Cookson, absolutely love the insight shared. I loved it also. Joseph Rampai, thank you so much, Mr. President, with the good, fruitful information. All right? Now, if you enjoyed it, Lisander Dobson, thank you, sir. Very insightful. God bless. And who do we have? Okay, you did not have questions, so we have to move on. Now, there's something called synthetic foods. Synthetic foods. I don't have a specialist to talk to us about this, but I'm going to get one to talk to us about this. Now, this is something that is happening worldwide, started in Canada, Netherlands, Australia, and the goal is to ultimately reduce the number of animals on farms because they are being blamed of exacerbating climate change. Now, obviously, we know that 2023 is very, very hot. Actually, many people believe that it is the hottest year ever. But there are those who say this heat and the weather is being manipulated. I've seen some videos to that effect. I'm not sure what you think. Is the weather being manipulated? The storms we are having are natural. The heat we are having, I mean, imagine Johannesburg being 32 degrees. Johannesburg. No, in Johannesburg in the past when it was hot, it would be 28. But now we hit 32. Pretoria hits 36. Something is not right. Something is not right. All right? But we're going to leave it for next time because the claim is animals, reduce the animals. The Netherlands in particular have been instructed by their government. They've been instructed by their government to reduce the number of their animals. They are not happy about that. They are not happy about that. Now, let me read a paragraph that I read in Parliament today. It says, okay, maybe let me read from the beginning. I won't take too much time. The Preservation and Development of Agricultural Land Bill aims to address the shortcomings of the Subdivision of Agricultural Land Act and entrench regulatory measures for the security of high potential agricultural land. The bill that was discussed today is titled the Preservation and Development of Agricultural Land Bill. So this bill has been debated at a time when there is a move for farmland and animals to be taken away from food producers in rich countries because of the synthetic meat and food industry being promoted by Bill Gates, the American billionaire who blames cows for contributing to climate change. Dutch farmers have expressed anger and have staged widespread protest at their government's drive to tackle nitrogen pollution through a major reduction in numbers of pigs, cattle, and chickens in the Netherlands. Australia and Canada have also been targeted. So the reason I raise this is because we know that when they are done with these countries, they will say Africa. And when they say Africa, they will say South Africa. South Africa, you have to do the same. You have to reduce the number of animals on the farms because they are contributing to climate change. And from what we know of the ANC government, whenever Europe says anything, whenever United Nations says anything, to them is going to be, yeah, mebas. And obviously, we don't agree with that. Now, one of the reasons why I've raised this matter in Parliament, and I'm going to raise another one tomorrow, is to conscientize ANC members who are not aware of what's happening. Because ultimately, Parliament will have to endorse and agree with what's being said. So if people are not given all the information and a bill is brought to Parliament and the ANC members are told, support this, they will just support. But if they understand that this would impact on their families, on their relatives, particularly in the villages who own livestock, they will think twice. And I must say to you, friends, for me, this is going to be an election issue. Voters should not vote for people who want or who agree with reducing the number of livestock. Many farmers who are farming in livestock would lose their businesses. And if they lose their businesses, poverty is going to increase. And obviously, friends, we cannot allow that to happen. So ACDP, we are doing things, we are saying things that other parties will not say. It was dead quiet when I spoke about it. And when I went to my seat, the DP said, I saw a number of ANC people talking and some of them nodding their heads because they were happy that we are raising these issues because they can't raise them. Because some of their leaders got some money from Bill Gates and company, maybe. That is why many are scared to speak. So I would want to know whether you agree with what you are doing or not, whether you agree with what you are saying or not. Now, one of the things that the ACDP has done, the first party in South Africa, actually the only party in South Africa that we are aware of, wrote a letter on Friday last week to the United Nations, to the Secretary General Tedros, saying to him, we disagree and we reject the amendments that are being made to the World Health Treaty, because with the amendment of the treaty or the amendment of the Constitution regulating the treaty, it would give them authority, it would give them powers to declare health pandemics. All the countries who are signatories and who are members of World Health Organization, all countries would have to obey if their constitution is amended and they are given those powers. So ACDP wants to make sure that they don't get those powers. What's wrong with those powers? If they get those powers, all countries that are signatories or that are members of the World Health Organization are going to lose their sovereignty. Imagine going to lose their sovereignty. We are just going to be individuals. We are just going to be puppets. We are just going to be zombies who are regulated and controlled by people who never voted. And ACDP says, no, 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 no. We don't want that to happen. So that is going to come, and we are also trying to conscientize our members to say, please rise up, please rise up, please rise up. We cannot allow this to happen, okay? Now, Jerome, September, he says, not on our watch, Mr. President. 2024 change is coming, godly governance. Now, that is the language we want to hear. African is the playground of the world. Africa is the playground of the world. Very true, Mr. President. ANC always says, yeah, boss. Okay, that's going to change. ACDP, you are the hope of this nation. Okay, you are the hope of this nation. Mario brings us, our vice president, seeing the dangers in advance. That's what we need in this country. Okay, now we see dangers in advance. I like to say many people have chicken eyes. Chicken eyes. The chicken only sees where it is, around it only. They only see. But eagles see a long distance away. They can see far. Their eyes are sharp. They can see far. If danger comes, they can see from far, not chicken. So ACDP, we are like eagles, all right? We can see and warn the country. Tell South Africans, the ACDP, South Africa needs ACDP, and ACDP needs you. With this message, I believe there are many people who, if they hear it, that's why it's important for you to share the message. If they hear it, they will say, we are safer with the ACDP. All other parties, no, they're just working as if the New World Agenda is not around. It's not going to be imposed soon. We do not want to be part of the New World Order. We do not want to be part of the New World, One World Religion. We don't want to be part of that. We want to enjoy our freedom of religion as our constitution promises. But obviously, if these guys have their way, our sovereignty is gone, our personal rights are gone, and we are just going to be dictated to by the autocrats that have never been voted on, okay? That have never been elected. They are just going to impose their will on us. Leonard, is it Kraus or Kraus? Kraus, I think. Any word on the view on the new virus that is spreading around the world? Well, not here yet, not here yet, not here yet, but we are watching. We are watching. Now, some of these viruses obviously come from laboratories because they want to lock us down. They want to lock us down. They came with monkeypox. Monkeypox didn't take over. We said we are aware of what happened during COVID. We are not going to have another lockdown because of what you call monkeypox. Government was starting to talk about monkeypox. They are now quiet. They don't talk about monkeypox anymore. Or did monkeypox come and left again? No. If we kept quiet, they would have continued and say, hey, there is now an emergency. Monkeypox all over. Monkeypox. Ladies and gentlemen, word wakker, okay? Goeie mense, word wakker. Really not under our watch. That's what the ACDP is saying. That's what faithful members and fighters in the ACDP are saying, not under our watch, all right? We will not agree with those who say you will own nothing and be happy. We know that this is what the World Economic Forum has been saying. You will own nothing and be happy. You cannot be happy. Africans cannot be happy to own nothing and be expected to be happy. It's not going to happen, okay? They say you will own nothing because they know how they're going to make you and I lose everything that we have. But we are watching. It's not going to happen under watch. Tracy Lee Meaning says, thank the Lord that the ACDP is on God's side. Yes, we need to rise up. ACDP is the only incorruptible party in the whole world. I'm not sure about the world, but in South Africa, maybe. We are a threat to the new world order. That is one, that is for sure. We are a threat, okay? We will not be bought out and nor will we compromise. In God we trust. We said, me, President, love these talks. You love these talks. Okay. God bless you. You love these talks. God bless you. And now the DP just walked in now. My co-pilot, I'm about to land and he shows up. Okay, sir? Because at least you did come. Come and say your last bite. Tell them why you are late. And obviously, you owe our people an apology, even though I apologize on your behalf, sir. But I said to them, 10 minutes. I said to them, in 10 minutes, you'll be with us. And so my 10 minutes was not a good estimation. Okay. But maybe tell them why we are late and what happened and so on. And then I'm done for, okay, I'll come when you're done.
Well, we want to take this opportunity just to thank everyone again for tuning in. As we come to the conclusion of our year at Parliament, there are so many different debates, so many issues, and normally what happens is that the program is actually quite packed. At the moment, just prior to coming up, I spoke on the response to the National Disaster and Relief report, where the report is, in a sense, quite candid, but also damning. Damning in the sense that not enough has been done. Speaks about slow response of government to disasters taking place in South Africa. It speaks about the lack of cooperation between the different municipalities and intergovernmental departments. It speaks of poor infrastructure. It speaks about the fact that our drainage system has not been taken care of. And so very clearly, we have a challenge in terms of, not only in terms of disaster preparation, but if one looks at almost every department where the ruling party, the ANC, touches, those particular departments and state-owned entities have either collapsed and are no longer going concerns or on the verge of collapse. You can mention SAA, you can mention the post office, you can talk about Denel, you can talk about Eskom, Prasa, Transnet. The evidence is overwhelming. The evidence is conclusive. And so those were the words that I used just before I came up. The evidence is overwhelming. The evidence is damning. It is very clear that the ANC have failed the people of South Africa. And I concluded by saying, and they must be replaced by the ACDP. So
Wonderful.
we need your support as we look at replacing the ANC with the African Christian Democratic Party, remembering, as I always say, that South Africa needs the ACDP and the ACDP needs you. Thank you, sir.
So true, so true, so true. South Africa needs the ACDP, and the ACDP needs you. This is a beautiful country.
Yeah.
We are in a beautiful continent that needs South Africa's assistance. And for them to need South Africa's assistance, they need ACDP's assistance. That is why our name, friends, is not South African Christian Democratic Party, not South African Christian Democratic, but African. Why? Because God gave us a continental vision. We are going to help Africa. That is our calling. We are going to help Africa. So if you want to see Africa that prospers, Africa that will make Germany, Europe, all other countries in Europe to be almost jealous about the prosperity that will be happening here, rise up. Work hard for the ACDP. Recruit, bring in members so that the ACDP will take the responsibility next year of leading this country into a better, prosperous future. Thank you very much for joining and for being with us tonight. I trust that you enjoyed tonight's episode and our guest, Kevin, who spoke so well. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, this is going to be our last episode for this year. As he said, Parliament is rising also this week. And with Parliament rising, people want to go and rest. Schools have closed. People are tired. I know he's tired also, as I'm tired. So, friends, please, please, please enjoy your family. Have good rest. We are going to work much harder next year because it will be our final stretch towards 2024, winning poll, winning elections by the grace of God. You say, how is it going to happen? ACDP is still so small. Hey, we serve a big God.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a chorus that says, we serve a big God. We serve a big God. A God with whom nothing is impossible.
That's right.
God loves South Africa. God loves his people. God loves Africa. He wants to help them. Without the Lord's help, nobody can get this country right. Nobody, because with the ANC, corruption has permeated every little corner, every little space that's there. And there are other political parties, obviously, that do not have the fear of God that we have, that will do the same thing because they will see how ANC members have become so wealthy and they will be tempted to say, I also want to have that wealth, right? But with ACDP, we are God-fearing. We will not do it. We will not steal. Because of our fear of God. Okay, love you so much. Thank God for you. If we don't have another opportunity to talk to you guys, a blessed Christmas, a peaceful Christmas. Enjoy your rest, your holiday, whether you are traveling, whether you are going to be home, enjoy your holiday with your family. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and
Merry
a blessed
Christmas.
New Year.
And a blessed New Year. Amen. God bless you. Thank you so much.